All right, we're going to Ecclesiastes 8. 8 and 9 tonight. This first section, he's going to talk about the limits of our human abilities. It's hard often to come up to a place where we admit we're powerless. You know, we're used to being in control. But occasionally we come to a place where we're just powerless. Maybe this COVID thing, I wonder if part of the resistance of some folks is that they're not used to being someplace, they're not used to being something where they have no control over it. And they don't feel like there's control and nobody's going to control them. Let's look at the text. So who is like this wise man who knows the explanation of things? Who can explain how the world works? You know, think of how little they knew about the world compared to what we know about the world. Martin Luther, when he was a boy, if the milk spoiled, it was because the devil got into it. Okay. No understanding of bacteria and how cells grow. A friend of mine from Missouri, she lives in Illinois. She and I communicated today and said her mother just died at the age of 93, and her mother had a sister who died like within weeks of childbirth, a baby sister, and they called her a blue baby. Well, she probably had the same condition my grandson has, but they had no treatment whatsoever. That would have been about probably 90 years ago. There would have been no treatment whatsoever. So if the writer of Ecclesiastes doesn't know, we still don't know. So we have to live with this state of not knowing, and it doesn't sit very well with us. Wisdom brightens a man's face and changes its hard appearance. When you know, you smile. When you understand, you can lighten up a little bit. Wisdom, understanding has value because it makes you smile. It makes your face light up. Throughout the Bible, a shining face, which is what this text really says, your face shines. A shining face is the presence of God. Remember when Moses went up the mountain, his face, when he came down from the mountain, his face shone. The whole idea that by being with God, it shows on our face. That's the point here. With that wisdom, we can light up. But all of it is the work of a God that we cannot understand. And yet, when God comes to us, our faces light up. Look at verse 2. Obey the king's command, I say, because you took an oath before God. Do not be in a hurry to leave the king's presence. Do not stand up for a bad cause, for he will do whatever he pleases. Since a king's word is supreme, who can say to him, "What are you doing?" Whoever obeys his command will come to no harm, and the wise heart will know the proper time and procedure. For there is a proper time and procedure for every matter, though a man's misery weighs heavily upon him. Since no man knows the future, who can tell him what's to come? No man has power over the wind to contain it, so no one has power over the day of his death. No one is discharged in time of war. Wickedness will not release those who practice it. Obey the king's command because you took an oath to. I don't hear in this text, obey the king because he's the king. Do you? I hear you made a vow to be obedient to this king, and so keep your vow. But even the king is wrong, so don't get on the wrong side. You might keep your mouth shut because the king is the king, but don't support, what does he say? Do not stand up for a bad cause, for he will do whatever he wants. Here, the wisdom is follow your leader. The Apostle Paul will say, follow your leader. The Apostle John says, resist the government. So how do you know who to listen to on this? What do you do? I don't have the answer.
Yes, to a certain extent, you might have to use your own judgment as much as you can, but that's only going so far.
Tish, it's what he says. Not even the wisest can know the future. So the king has power over life and death, but not even power over life and death for himself. There is a limit to the king's power. The king doesn't say, I'll have somebody else die for me. He can't do that. So even the king, who has all the power that they could imagine in the ancient world, even the king doesn't have ultimate power. So here's a really pragmatic approach that he's saying. Obey the king. Keep your oath. But the king, even the king, has a limit to his abilities.
I just wonder if they knew it, the kings knew it. I mean, if there were limits to what they could do.
I would say some did and some don't. To this day, some do and some don't.
Haven't you known people that think they know everything and have the answer to everything?
I know them too well.
I would love to kick them, but I can't.
Yeah, don't do that because
No, I know that. I'm pragmatic enough.
you're pragmatic enough. You might fall and end up in the hospital or jail.
Well, jail would be more like a thing.
Obey the king up to a point. I mean,
Well, in John's case, in the book of Revelation, obey the king unless the king is asking you to sin. And then that's where he drew the line.
Well, we have people today that blindly follow the leaders of their political party. I mean, just, and both parties. I mean, just anything they say is gospel to them.
I do think we need some more thinking people in the world.
Mm-hmm. First, they have to have something to think with, though. And
So, look at verse 10. We'll start at 9. All this I saw as I applied my mind, everything done under the sun. There is a time when a man lords it over others to his own hurt. Have you experienced that? Mm-hmm. There's an old phrase, when somebody really thinks they have got it all, you give them enough rope to let them hang themselves. You know that phrase?
that was one of my grandmother's favorite expressions.
When somebody thinks they've got all the answers, all right, you be in charge. Do you remember that great, wasn't that no, that was not the theme of Oh God, was it? That was, you're all way too young for this movie, Oh God, but you ought to watch it. John Denver and George Burns. But the movie, what is where?
Evan Almighty?
There was Evan Almighty was the second one. Wasn't there one before that?
The first one.
Bruce Almighty?
Bruce Almighty.
Bruce Almighty. So God takes a vacation and puts Bruce in charge of the world because he's sure he could do a better job. Well, of course, you know what happens, right? It's a total disaster and everything's a mess. And
everybody wins the lottery.
Yeah, everybody wins the lottery. Because, yeah, that's easy. Yeah, enter those prayers.
And then nobody would have to work, so how could you spend your money?
Yeah, that's a great one. So everybody thinks they know. There are some people who think they know exactly what everything needs to be done. What does he say? There is a time when a man lords it over others to his own hurt. Then I saw the wicked buried, those who used to come and go from the holy place and receive praise in the city where they did this too is meaningless. There is a limit. So anytime you think you've got it all figured out, guess what? You're going to die too. There'll be a day when you come to the end of your rope. When the sentence for, let's see if I get all that right. When the sentence for a crime is not quickly carried out, the hearts of the people are filled with schemes to do wrong. They're inspired. If he got away with it, I can get away with it. Although a wicked man commits 100 crimes and still lives a long time, I know that it will go better with God-fearing men who are reverent before God. Yet because the wicked do not fear God, it will not go well with them, and their days will not lengthen like a shadow. But I'm going to keep going. There is something else meaningless that occurs on earth. Righteous men who get what the wicked deserve, and wicked who get what the righteous deserve. So here's the deal. I've known a man who did wrong things and he lived a long life. Didn't seem to get punished at all. But he says, but remember, they weren't happy days. He was always wondering when he was going to get caught, when it would catch up with him. And then I've seen where the wicked who got what the good people deserve, and the good people got what the wicked people deserve. Haven't you seen that? Haven't you wondered about that? Where is justice in the world? You know, that's not a new question. This text is, 400 BC probably, so it makes it 2,500 years old.
Just as relevant today as it was then, when you think about it.
Just as relevant. That hasn't changed. So what do? He says in society, character really counts for nothing, because there are people who are terrible people, but they get away with it. But he says, here's your best bet. Hold on to a life of reverence. You'll sleep better at night. You may not get all of the stuff that the wicked get, but you'll enjoy your life. Even though the wicked prosper, don't despair. Reverence has its benefit. You can go out of the house without fear of who's chasing you, who is looking for you, who is coming back for revenge on you. He said the wicked aren't able to extend their days, even though it seems like they have a long life. Really, long life or short life, it's chance.
But the rewards come later.
Let's hope. That's, that sense that there will be a day of justice is a thing that all of us hang on to.
Yeah, I just turned a verse from the New Testament in Paul is writing. I'm not sure how it fits some of the translations. The King James, though, is pretty clear. It says, some men's sins are open beforehand, going before to judgment, and some men they follow after. The next verse says, likewise also, the good works of some are manifest beforehand, but they that are otherwise cannot be hid. I always love those two verses, and they go along with you.
They go right with it. The wicked man may prosper, but he'll spend his life looking over his shoulder who's out to get revenge for the terrible things he's done to get where he is.
Wouldn't you hate to have some of the things on your mind that some of our most heinous criminals have done? I mean, that they've got to live with it. They may not have been caught, but someplace that's in the back of their mind, and that must be a horrible burden.
I guess there are such a thing as sociopaths that have just no guilt whatsoever. There's nothing in them. But even they have to know one day it'll all catch up with them. I just wouldn't want to live like that, with that on my conscience, with being worried about who was chasing me.
I've got enough of my conscience.
Isn't that the truth? I already lay awake at night worrying.
I mean, the least little thing upset some people. I mean, my grandmother, she had she didn't like to owe money. She did, but she didn't like to. And she said, if I owed a man money every time I saw him on the street, I would think he was wondering, when are you gonna pay me what you owe me? That's, I guess it's a way of saying that, you would wonder,
Yeah.
what's on your mind? I mean,
When are you going to get me back?
well, that's another one too.
Absolutely. So what is it? Let's see. So what does he say? So, verse 15. So I commend the enjoyment of life. So here's what you do. You don't worry so much about, are you getting paid back for the good you did? Or do you not have what the wicked have? Here's what you do. Enjoy life. Because nothing is better for a man under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. This is a theme he comes back to every week, isn't it?
Eat, drink, and be merry.
Eat, drink, and be merry. Joy will accompany him in all the days of his life God has given him under the sun.
And the rest of it is for tomorrow you may die.
Yeah. If you can come to a place where you enjoy the simple things of life,
That's Carrie.
then you will die a peaceful person.
You know, it doesn't have to be something elaborate either. I mean, I enjoy
Creation.
yeah, I know a beautiful sunset or sunrise, either one, and autumn leaves and things like that. I mean, they're simple things, but they still bring a lot of people much pleasure.
That's Carrie.
This morning I was out walking the dog, the grand dog.
Oh, that one, okay.
Before you all came in, I told you what I've called him. I won't say it on video,
Ooh.
but it's not terrible. But I was out with him in the backyard because he can't be left alone. Anyway, I thought, well, look at that. There's about 3 leaves on that maple tree that are red.
Oh,
Well, look at that. It's coming. Today was cool and overcast and rainy. I think fall really is coming. Enjoy that. Be in that moment. If you get a great meal, if you have a nice, he's going to keep on going on that theme here in a second, but enjoy the gifts of God that you have. God is in heaven and you are on earth. Well, let's look at the text. When I applied my mind to know wisdom and to observe man's labor on earth, his eyes not seeing sleep day or night. The older I get, that's more me, not seeing sleep day or night. Then I saw all that God has done. No one can comprehend what goes on under the sun. Despite all his efforts to search it out, man cannot discover its meaning. Even if a wise man claims he knows, he cannot really comprehend it. So what do? You discern God's work in your world the best you can. Even though you know the answers may be elusive. And even with all of our science and education and intellect, we still don't have all the answers. But God is on heaven and you are on earth. It's a bitter pill, but at some point we have to take it and say, that's what I know.
well, actually, are people one of the most complex and unpredictable things you can know anything about? I mean, I found them completely unpredictable.
And so I think, Tish, what he's saying that same thing. We can tie ourselves up in all kinds of knots. Well, what about this? And what about this? And how does God do this? And what is God going to do if I do that? He's trying to really simplify, and maybe he's oversimplifying, but he's trying to simplify to say,
Don't worry about it.
enjoy the moment, the presence of God. Enjoy those 2 babies you got, those 2 children. Enjoy your kiddos. Enjoy going to work. Enjoy your garden. Enjoy, you got a pup that you love. And
All 70 pounds.
enjoy those moments because they are the gifts of God.
And above all, I think people should take their pleasure and their enjoyment where they find it. One of the reasons I enjoy working with machinery and animals and building things and things like that is each one of those activities is a lot more predictable than the human race. Now with animals, they're not so much, but still though, usually the outcome is exactly what you put into it and what you know about and how you treat it. But with people, you can treat people like $1 million. They'll turn around and do things to you. I mean, you just don't know.
So the bottom line of chapter 8 is that human limitation is a bitter pill, and you'll be happier when you swallow it. When you come to your own limitations of your own understanding. So that wisdom comes from knowing how limited we are. You think that's true?
I think it's important that people know their own limitations too. You know, a lot of people that know all mine or somebody else's, but not their own. And it's a trait, especially true of
Don't
school
worry,
principals.
just enjoy everything.
So let's go on to chapter 9. So I reflected on all this and concluded that the righteous and the wise and what they do are in God's hands. But no man knows whether love or hate awaits him. All share a common destiny, the righteous and the wicked, the good and the bad, the clean and the unclean, those who offer sacrifices and those do not. We all know we're going to the same thing is going to happen to us. And then he does a poem. As it is with the good man, so with the sinner. As it is with those who take oaths, so with those who are afraid to take them. This is the evil that happens, the evil in everything that happens under the sun. The same destiny overtakes all. The hearts of men are full of evil, and there is madness in their hearts while they live, and afterward they join the dead. Anyone who is living among the living has hope, but even a live dog is better than a dead lion. A lion, I always was confused why there's so many lion passages in the Middle East in the Bible. The Lion of Judah, you've heard the Lion of Judah, because they didn't know anything about Africa. But there were desert lions. They're extinct now, but they had desert lions. David would fight off lions. You can watch them on National Geographic. I think there's still some desert lions in the world, but in this part of the world, they had lions. A lion was seen as strong and valorous, full of strength and character, and the lion was a great thing. And they hated dogs. The Jews always hated dogs because dogs are scavengers. They eat dead things. Lions kill their prey, and dogs just eat whatever they can find. And so the Jews would call Gentiles dogs, and it was a dirty word. It was a terrible name. Not unlike a female dog becomes a bad name for somebody.
You go to a dog show and hear it on the loudspeaker for the first time. It shocks people.
My brother and his wife and their girls they're dog show people. They have massive dogs, and they raise Newfoundlands, and they raise these other ones, these Spanonis that are about that big, and
Like little horses.
And when your 6-year-old niece says to you, "My bitch is in heat," it's just hard to hear that. But it's dog show talk, right? If you're around dog show people.
Yeah. One of the funniest cartoons I ever saw was in Saturday Evening Post. It was these two pompous-looking middle-aged ladies were at a dog show, and the announcer had been saying something. The one said to the other one, "Couldn't he just say females?"
Yeah. One of my favorite stories, we had a couple here, the Sticklers. They're both in heaven now, but they were dog show people. They raised Scottish Terriers. And she would have Leslie come sing at their annual dog show, and she would change the words in the songs to fit the dog show. Maxine would, and she would want Leslie to come sing, and Leslie would say, "I can't say that word." I can't say. Like, okay, everybody here says that word. It means something different. I don't know. I can't say it. You have to come up with a different word. So I chased that rabbit to say that that's how bad they felt about dogs. So here's what he says. A live dog is better than a dead lion. I think that's kind of a funny line myself. But the dog has the advantage because he scavenges the lion's remains.
Well, dogs today, I've got some that are awful picky eaters, but.
Well, yeah, their dogs today are different than dogs.
Domestic now, yeah, they have to have a bunch of blue buffalo there.
So what's his point? Everybody dies. Good men die, bad men die, people who decide to do the right thing die, people who all their lives always do the wrong thing die. So what do? Do we just throw up our hands and give up? No. You know the answer is going to be no, right? It's one of those trick questions that is the answer is always. The answer is no, you don't throw up in your hands and give up. There is something positive in life because as long as you are alive, you have hope. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing. They have no further reward. Even the memory of them is forgotten. Their love, their hate, and their jealousy have long since vanished. Never again will they have a part in anything that happens under the sun. As long as you're alive, there is possibility in your heart. You can yet experience good things. So living has an advantage over dying. I think most of us would probably agree with that. Knowing that you're going to die, I've said this every week, knowing that you're going to die gives life that meaning. Because then you understand how important hope is. Even if it's, I hope before I die, I enjoy my life. Life is preferred over death in this chapter. Now in chapters 4 and 6, he preferred to be dead. I wish I were dead. But now he's changed his tune. I'm glad I'm not dead. So what's he say? You know what he's going to say already. Go, eat your food with gladness and drink your wine with a joyful heart, for it is now that God favors what you do. Always be clothed in white and always anoint your head with oil. These are party clothes. Of course, white clothes, you only put them on when they're clean because the moment they get dirty, everybody knows it. So white was a sign of purity, of course, but it was also a sign of celebration. If you put on white clothes, everybody knew you put on clean clothes because there was no way in that dusty world they lived in, there was no way to keep it clean. So here's what you do. Put on your white clothes and anoint yourself with perfume. So what's he saying? Take a bath, put on some clean clothes, put on some deodorant, hide the smell, and go out and enjoy a good meal.
Wasn't bathing rather infrequent in that?
Yeah, bathing's rather infrequent, and change of clothes is very infrequent, and you only have maybe 2 or 3 sets of clothing to begin with. You know, you might change your inner garments more often than your outer garments, but there's no deodorant. So oil was used, fragrant oil was used as perfume. Put on some clean clothes. Hide your body odor. Have a nice meal. Enjoy the life that you have. What does he say? Enjoy life with your wife, whom you love. All the days of this meaningless life that God has given you under the sun, all for all your meaningless days. For this is your lot in life, and in your toilsome labor under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. For in the grave where you are going, There is not working or planning or knowledge or wisdom. Enjoy your friends and family. Have a party. Celebrate. Enjoy your work. I kind of skipped over one of those sections. Enjoy your work. The curse was not work. When Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, the curse was not that now they had to work. Because work can be joyful, can be meaningful. The curse was unproductive work. We all know what that's like. Our 2-year-old granddaughter is now out of her crib and in a toddler bed. So that meant at our house, we needed a toddler bed for her to put it. Well, it came from Amazon in 1,000,000 pieces. And I got it to the last 2 pieces and realized that a piece that I had used at like step 2 or 3, it was exactly the same except it was missing a hole. So you go all the way back to almost the beginning. And I won't say on the camera the language that I thought of. That was not fun work. That's not productive work, right? Because you work and you work and you work and you have nothing to show for it. That's unproductive work. But when, Kelly, you come to the end of a school year and that kid who didn't know an A from a Z can now quote all 26, you say, I did it. I did my part.
Did you read the instructions on the baby bed all the way through?
Yes, I did. I followed the instructions, but I missed this tiny little hole on one of them that looked identical to the rail on the other side. It was not a good place for me to be. It was not good to be around me.
But you basically got it put together.
Well, it's put together. Let's just say it's not going to be moved too many times. So, productive work. Some activity is better than no activity. Go, eat, drink, let, enjoy, do, because you're alive. Do the things that you can do because you ain't dead yet. Enjoy your family and your friends and the work you have to do. Because I've already said this, the value of work is not in the profit that you make, but in accomplishing the challenge that you did.
So true.
And then he says, in whatever your hands find to do. We're not talking just about things that make you famous or things that make you rich, but in whatever your hands find to do. Find value and enjoyment in the work. When COVID hit, Christy started making masks. I think she probably sewed 2,000 masks. She took them to work. You know, they have 120 residents and another 100 employees and people at the residents on the 2 other floors. And she sewed, and so she would spend 5 and 6 hours a night sewing masks. Well, when the mask thing kind of died down, she didn't know what to do. So then she started crafting. Oh my gosh. And now we have more craft materials. We have paint, we have yarn, we have rope, we have wood disc, and now we have a Cricut, which is a machine. Do you have one of those yet? It's a machine that cuts things out that you peel and stick. And I mean, we are into this. So she was making all this stuff. Well, as you would know, I started crafting. So now I'm making things too. And it's like silly. What am I going to do with all of this stuff? By the way, it's what you're all getting for Christmas this year.
We met this friend, her husband's Japanese, she's a painter, and she paints every day. She paints oil painting. And she's done her walls instead of wallpaper in her.
Oh,
are they gorgeous?
beautiful.
One of a kind, too.
So here's my point. I
has
kind of
a-
feel good about producing something. I make it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. How many coaster sets can somebody have, right?
If you could invent and produce a tray that the dishes would not slide around on and the glass would not tip over,
Sell
and you could clean up easily,
Well, I'll work on that. I'll make you one for Christmas.
it. Join the market.
So I'm going to have a booth in the market to sell my crafts. But all that to say, whatever your hands find to do, if it's productive, do it. And take joy in it.
That is the worst thing about this carpal tunnel. I can't work on my tiny little model trains anymore and oil painting. Well, let's put it this way, it's worse than impressionistic. I mean, it just.
But you're a beautiful painter.
I
Tish,
think you are.
Tish has made these beautiful paintings. She has one of herself that I want desperately.
Myself,
Let's go. Is it for sale?
I didn't know I had one of myself.
Does Laurel own that one of you shoveling the coal?
Oh, I gave that to her, yeah.
Oh, I want hers then.
Okay.
I want you to make me one. All right. So he's going to close with a parable. Go down to verse 13. And what's interesting here is your Bible translates it one way, but the Hebrew has a different translation. I'm going to read it. I saw there was once a small city with only a few people in it. A powerful king came against it, surrounded it, and built huge siege works against it. You get the picture. This small walled city, hardly anybody inside. This powerful king has brought his whole army and built these works, these siege works. He is going to destroy the city. Now there lived in that city a man poor but wise. And the Hebrew says, my Bible says, and he saved the city by his wisdom. The Hebrew says, he might have saved that city by his wisdom. In other words, if the people inside the city had listened to this poor little old man who had an idea, the city might have been saved. Maybe it's the ideas from the quiet ones that need to be heard. Nobody remembered that poor man. So I said, wisdom is better than strength. But the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are no longer heeded. The quiet words of the wise are more to be heeded than the shouts of a ruler of fools. The quiet words of the wise are more to be heeded than the shouts of a ruler of fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. That small voice may be the voice you need to listen to. All right, what do you think of this text tonight? It's 7:31. We're a minute late. We're good. What do you think?
A lot of wisdom in there. It has nothing to do with the way it was written.
Yeah, that's right.
Very true today.
A lot of wisdom. We're going to try to finish up Ecclesiastes next week, 9 and 10.
How many chapters?
Oh, I'm sorry, 10 and 11.
11.
10 and 11. There's 11. So we'll finish 10 and 11 next week. Good stuff, huh?
Lots of thinking.
Very interesting.